Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am presently with Mr. Bongani Masuku. Mr. Bongani, can you introduce yourself and the country and your relationship with UNCCD?
Good afternoon or good evening, good morning. I am Bongani Masuku from the Kingdom of Eswatini, and I've been the national focal point on UNCCD for many years and retired and then took over as the STC Science and Technology Correspondent, and that's why I'm still with the UNCCD.
Thank you very much. So, as a first question, I'd like to ask, what do you think are the key bottlenecks for countries in Africa and for countries in general to move from reactive to proactive approach in drought management?
For me, when I look at the situation, I think key bottlenecks could include one, the political will at all levels, both at the affected countries and the donor community, the partners, and also the issue of resources, because proactive approach needs to that countries invest resources. And then the other issues could be capacity, especially on the side of affected parties. And then, of course, there could be other issues of our lack of awareness and infrastructure, technology, and all these issues. Basically, those are the issues, but political will at all levels becomes key, because all those things, if there is political will at global level, then we could address this issue.
You're very right. We need to raise the profile of drought management, the political profile of drought management. Thank you for that. So, as a second question, I'd like to ask a bit about the intergovernmental working group current extended policy options that they have, 48 that you've put forward. Can you tell us a bit about the process that you've been doing in order to prioritize and select the 7 policy options that will be put in front forward at the COP16?
Thank you very much. We started with 48 so-called options. Some of them, they don't qualify actually to be options. You can say activities or issues. But then how did you get the 48? We circulated a request from parties, relevant institutions, stakeholders, just to throw what they think could form the list of the so-called issues that we need to look into. Then after sieving and combinations and doing this and that, we managed to come with the 48 so-called issues. Let's call them issues for now. Then after that, from 48, we started grouping them to say, oh, these are finance issues, these are technical issues, these are legal issues. So we then started making groups and then combining some of them, and then also considering several issues to say, the mandate says the UNCCD implementation. So those things should be under the mandate of the UNCCD. So we are throwing out some of the issues that were not under. For example, issues that under the UNGA and others. So then eventually we came to the 7, but still another aspect we're saying we could have 12 or 20, but we're understanding that for the parties to make a meaningful decision, they need to be given robust options that they can decide on instead of having so many to decide on. That's why we came up with the 7 options.
Oh, great. Thank you. And so, out of the 7 options currently laid out, can you take us through some of them, and especially some that have attracted the attention of parties from the Africa group?
I'll maybe touch on 3. Maybe one of them is the guidance to the GEF, Global Environment Facility, which is just saying if we can guide the GEF, because we have an agreement with the GEF as the UNCCD to say, can we mobilize more resources from the GEF to allocate to countries so that we implement the national drought plans and other related instruments at national level? That is the gist. Of course, it has got its own positives and negatives. But then the next one, which I want to talk about, are what I would call the 2 giants, which is the first one is the Global Framework on Drought Resilience, which is just a framework which will provide all the elements, which could include financial approaches, targets, institutional arrangement, and everything into one framework for implementation. Then the last one I will talk about is the protocol. The protocol, for me, it is related to the global framework because it's an open shell where you can put anything, targets, monitoring and evaluation structures, strategies, and all this and that, financial institutions. And the two I'm talking about, you bring in the so-called other options. For example, the GEF would fit in any of the two. Guidance to the global mechanism will fit into the two. We have declarations. Declaration can go with any other. So these are the most issues. Global environment. It's the global framework on drought resilience and the protocol.
The two giants.
The two giants.
Great, thank you very much for that. So as we are approaching COP16, what are some of your key messages or recommendations that you would have for your fellow African national focal points? And how should they go about trying to decide which of those policy options, including the giants that you just mentioned, how do they go about deciding which one should be most appropriate and they should advocate for at COP16?
For me, I think it's simple and it's clear. We have the problem. How do you measure and map the seriousness of the problem that we have, which is drought? And from the readings, almost the whole world is affected by drought in one way or the other. And the severity, the intensity, it's spreading and it's getting more and more tougher. And then we have people, animals, and whatever dying. So if you say we have people who are dying, how serious is that? Then you consider the seriousness of the problem. Then you try to match the remedial issue. Then out of the 7, I say there are 2 giants. You have the global framework. Does the global framework really matches the problem? Which to me, I would say, how different is it from the other frameworks that we have, which we had in place, but they did not yield the result. So it's a matter of saying we have the protocol, which is the most overarching, and it provides all options because the protocol is open and is binding. It's forcing, because the issue is it's not only binding to the donor community, even to the parties, the affected parties, our governments, they'll be bound to contribute to make sure that the proactive activities are implemented. The decisions that they make at national level are pro-drought management. So for me, that is what I would say. Consider the problem, but then you may say, I'm coming from Eswatini. Drought is not as serious maybe as in South Africa. So let me leave it to the, you then have to fall into the regional position, say, drought is very serious. How serious is drought in Africa? It's on the extreme end, and it's even continuing, it's intensifying and spreading. So which of these options, for me, I think the overarching one.
Thank you. Very clear call for action here from Mr. Bongani. So as a final and last questions, UNCCD has established now the communities of learning and practice, which is a peer-to-peer knowledge sharing mechanism between national focal points. How do you think, what's the potential of this community of learning and practice, and what kind of support do you think it can bring to the national focal points?
I think this is an important undertaking. They say knowledge is power. So it's a platform that provides sharing of information. If, right, for example, now we're talking about we have a position as the African, how do I get it across to other stakeholders who may not know it? So I think it's a very good instrument where we could even share. If I come to Livingstone, I find that the falls, they're drying. Then I take a picture and share. Then people somewhere, they say, this thing is very serious. So it's a good platform for information sharing. And once you have the right information, you can make proper decisions.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Bongani.
Thank you.